Copy that, 1 minute. We're in West Covina, exiting, yep. Let's see, we'll find out. He's setting up to go south, and they're gonna try to pit. Nope. We're in West Covina, and it looks like it's gonna end here in a pit maneuver. Let's see if he can recover from this. We're at Citrus, just south of the 10 freeway. Yep, he's gonna try to reverse course and keep going. Here goes another pit. They're still on the street. They're on Citrus, just south of the 10 freeway, and that's the vehicle that the West Covina Police Department was in pursuit of, and the driver is still in there. This is not over yet, folks. They just attempted multiple pit maneuvers here within the last minute or so, but before that, this pursuit had been going on for about an hour on many of our California freeways here in the Southern California area, including the 10, the 710, the 605, the 105, and now finally here back on the 10 freeway in the West Covina area where it all began. He exited Citrus, and that is when the West Covina Police Department attempted the first pit maneuver, and it seemed like things were over because he had pretty much crashed into a pole and was up on the sidewalk, but then took off yet again, and that's where we stand now. He's at a complete stop here on Citrus, again, just south of the 10 freeway. The vehicle itself appears to be a Kia Soul, perhaps, or a Scion, and unknown number of occupants, but this is a person who was wanted for some sort of domestic violence incident out of the West Covina area. It was not, which I was really surprised about, considering that the entire time that this pursuit was going on, it was on the freeway. So you would think that the California Highway Patrol, which is the police of our freeways, would have taken over, but here you go. West Covina Police can continue this pursuit here in the West Covina area. So as I was saying, they've been chasing this person all along, and it looks like the chase is not over yet. Continuing here southbound on Citrus. Yeah. Yeah, so this is going to be Citrus at Garvey. You can see lots of units here from the West Covina Police Department getting into place. During the course of this pursuit, it was 6 units that were behind this individual, as well as the LA County airship overhead, since West Covina does not have their own. But it looks like this officer moving in for the pit, but the driver can clearly see what that officer is trying to do and is picking up speed to try to avoid getting pitted by that police cruiser. It really could. We don't know the particular nature of that domestic violence incident and where it happened. But as you said, this is someone that the West Covina Police Department clearly wanted to apprehend themselves. So for that reason, they did not surrender it to the California Highway Patrol, even though they had plenty of time and plenty of reasons to do it. But they stayed on it the entire time. And the car itself appears to be smoking. I think he's having an issue with one of his tires, and perhaps that's why we're seeing some of that smoke coming from the passenger side of the vehicle. Yeah, they've been very aggressive. Every time they've had a chance, they've tried to perform that pit, especially if the driver is trying to make a turn. That's really an ideal time to try to do it. So that's what they've been trying to do, but unfortunately, it just has not worked just yet. And now continuing here on Azusa at Workman Avenue. Yeah, and that clearly did cause some damage, and you can see the car is basically falling apart on this guy. He's not going to be able to go much longer. That whole passenger side, we are seeing sparks flying now. So look at this, folks. He's basically down to the rim there on the front passenger side, and so that's why we're seeing him losing control here of the vehicle and parts just flying in every direction. They definitely could. The speeds are just about right. About 35 miles an hour or so is ideal, and he's around that range. So it looks like that unit, that's exactly what he's trying to do, but he's trying to get up to that bumper in order to cause him to spin. But ideally, he would like a more wide street, all things considered, because you can see that there's a lot of cars on either side of the street. Doesn't want to damage any of the other vehicles in the process or cause anyone to get hurt. So the West Covina police officer here may wait for a wider street to attempt another pit maneuver. Yeah, this is it's a residential street. It looks like a pretty much homes on either side of the street here. So really not the ideal location for a pit because you have all of these vehicles that are parked on a very narrow residential street. Ellen at Workman Avenue is where we find ourselves again. We're in the West Covina area. It's where this all began, and drivers who are involved, whoa, did you see those sparks? Wow. And more sparks flying. And he's going to go in here for another turn, and there goes another pit, but I'd call it more of a ramming rather than a pit. But you can see he's going to crash into that parked vehicle, and this may be it. So this may be it. He's pretty much jammed between that parked car and that police vehicle. I'm going to ask my pilot, Harry, if he could just turn around towards my side, Harry. It is right out my side, so that we can just get a touch closer and clear some of these trees out of the way so you can see this pursuit termination. Unclear how many people are in the vehicle, but again, this person wanted for some sort of domestic violence incident. It was unclear how many people were in the vehicle because the windows were very darkly tinted, so it was really tough to tell, and we never heard it come across the police scanner. At this point, we just believe that it is a male driver, and again, a domestic violence incident of some sort out of the West Covina area that led those officers on a very lengthy pursuit that took them all the way south into South LA before returning here to West Covina. That is correct, Colleen. This is North Broadmoor at Workman Avenue. Let me drop the speedometer for you since you don't need it anymore. But here you go. It's still West Covina. We're in a highly residential area, houses on either side of the street. So normally a very quiet neighborhood that is just a little bit louder tonight as this pursuit is coming to an end literally in front of people's homes. Yeah, it looks like I am seeing guns drawn, but as you said, those officers right in the middle are moving around a lot. They may be worried about this guy. That car does appear to be smoking, so they may try to effort to pull him out before he willingly wants to, because that car may be catching fire here soon. And I should mention, there was a time during the course of the pursuit when he was on the 105 freeway approaching the 110 freeway when he tossed something out of the car. And I know that the California Highway Patrol went back there and tried to retrieve whatever item that was. It's unclear if that was a weapon or something else, but I can tell you that at least during some point in the pursuit, that driver did toss something out of the window. Yeah, I'm watching these officers there with their guns drawn. They still seem on high alert, but the officers in between do not. So it's unclear what is going on there with that driver. They can see him, of course, from their vantage point, and you can see that there's still sparks flying. He's trying to move. Wow, this guy's not giving up. He's revving that engine. Sparks are flying, smoke coming up. He is not going to be giving up willingly. Yeah, the good news is he's not going anywhere. He can try, unless he's able to somehow magically move that civilian vehicle out of the way. He's just going to keep revving the engine until that car catches fire, really, because with all of those sparks flying, all of this smoke that you're seeing, that's really all that can happen in this situation, unless he just stops and willingly surrenders. But you see it, those officers backed up as soon as they saw what he was trying to do. No stake in trying to get him out of the vehicle now, because he is not going to surrender willingly. So this is a situation where they're going to have to wait for the driver to calm down and stop revving that engine before they make any other attempts to get him out of the vehicle. Domestic violence call out of the West Covina area, pursuit that started in that jurisdiction, that took us westbound on the 10 freeway over to Cal State LA before he made a southbound turn onto the 710 South, where he then got onto the 105 and then made his way almost to LAX before turning around and basically reversing course back here to West Covina. And it was a pretty calm pursuit, all things considered. He was high speeds, but now this termination is something I didn't expect to happen, considering that for the most part there weren't any collisions, there weren't any close calls. He was just driving fast. But when it came down to the end of it, when those pit maneuvers got into the equation, that is when really things started falling apart for this guy. And now you can see him, the car practically on fire here on residential streets in the West Covina area. Yeah, very well could be on fire. Look at all of that smoke coming out. And I can tell you that the fire department has already been advised to come to the scene, but they're not going to be able to get anywhere close to this guy until he is in custody. So this could be a situation where the officers are going to have to forcefully pull the man out of the vehicle if they start seeing flames, just in an effort to save his life. Because, again, they don't want anyone to get hurt in this situation, and that car is clearly catching fire. I can tell you that they're being told to shelter in place and knock it out of their vehicle, or rather their homes. I say vehicle because I can see the driver there just doing something in that front window. It looked like he was tossing something out, perhaps. I'm gonna get in my doublers here so that maybe we can see it a little bit better. But he still appears to be very volatile, tossing things out that window. The best thing, correct, yeah, the driver's side window is down. You can just barely make out his arm there. And just a moment ago, I could see him throwing car parts out of the vehicle. But it is to his advantage, really, to get out of the car now before it fully becomes engulfed in flames, because you can clearly see that this vehicle is catching fire here. Yeah, they won't fire gas, which is one of the things they sometimes do, because that could just contribute to the fire. They could try beanbag rounds, though. That's not going to hurt things. So they could fire some beanbag rounds, break the windows. At that point, if they have a clear open window, they could send in the dog. But in this case, of course, with the car catching fire, they wouldn't want to endanger the K-9 officers. So for that reason, at this point, they're just going to try to continue to make call-outs. Hopefully the smoke calms down and the driver calms down, and this could end peacefully, all things considered. Absolutely. He should definitely try to get out while he can before that car catches fire, or before they send in the dog. But you can see that it looks like things are starting to get slightly better. In terms of the officers and their positioning, you can see everyone is now behind cover, so behind a vehicle, either on this side or on that side, weapons drawn, both lethal and less than lethal, and still trying to continue their communication with this driver to get him out of the vehicle. And again, this all started as some sort of domestic violence incident in this area here in West Covina. Yeah, they definitely could. That this would be a type of situation where they would, but I did see that dog originally, and then I think they may have put him away. So at this point, he is in one of these cars. So if his services are needed, they'll bring him back out. But at this point, the driver still continues to move around a lot. In terms of the smoke, it seems to be calming down somewhat. And at this point, they'll just continue to make those call outs. And really, the time is on the side of the officers, is something I would normally say. But if this car catches fire, that really does change things. And they are going to have to act in a more hurried fashion than usual. Well, in this case, they know that he's wanted for a specific crime, which means they know who he is. It's not a situation where the car was stolen and they were unaware of who they were in pursuit of. So they know exactly who this person is. They're in communication with his family. They can get a family member to get on the loudspeaker. They sometimes will have a pre-recorded message that a family member can say to try to pull at the heartstrings, essentially, and get the person to surrender that way. But it's sometimes those situations can take a while to get the message pre-recorded and have it played out. In this case, with the car being in the condition that it is, they may not have that much time if it does catch fire, although it does appear to be getting slightly better. So at this point, they'll just continue to make those call outs, and at that point, if he doesn't come out, this could become a SWAT situation where they would have the SWAT team come out and put the Bearcats surrounding the vehicle and try to bring out some priceless negotiators and get him to surrender. At this point, it's unclear. We know that at one point during the pursuit, he did toss something out, but the West Covina police officers who saw that item tossed out into the air did not know what it was. They asked the California Highway Patrol to retrieve it, and at this point, I haven't heard what that may have been. Whether that was a weapon or not, that is still unclear. Yeah, California Highway Patrol was advised, so as it was making its way on the freeways, the CHP was notifying their agencies and their officers about the pursuit coming their way, but they were not asked to take over. Oftentimes when an agency hands a pursuit over to the California Highway Patrol, the CHP wants that original agency to drop out entirely. But in this case, West Covina didn't want to do that. They wanted to stay with it. And so for that reason, 6 units of West Covina chased this guy on multiple freeways, the 10, the 710, the 105, the 605, and until it eventually came to an end here on surface streets in a residential area in West Covina. At this point, yeah, they're starting to make those calls, and of course, some of those specialized units aren't at the station. They're folks that need to be called in from home, so it could take a little bit before they get any specialized teams out here to try to negotiate with this individual and get him to surrender. In the meantime, these officers, who are highly trained themselves, of course, will try to continue the negotiation process and try to convince him to get out of the vehicle. But you see what this one unit is doing there on the, yep. What he's trying to do is he's trying to block him in from the passenger side as well, is my guess. So he's going to get on that side just to basically limit the options. And the other thing he can do is, you noticed how he put his light on? Yeah, so he put his light on to essentially blind the driver so that when he looks out his rear, he can't see anything but bright white lights, and that creates confusion. And so the reason why those officers want that confusion is so that they can approach. If the driver can't see behind him, if all he sees is these bright white lights, he's not going to be able to see that team of officers coming his way. Yeah, this may be my opportunity actually to zoom in here a little bit and see what may be going on. Initially, I could see him, but I'm not really seeing him at this point. Yeah, that is where we had seen him before. So that is kind of the area that I'm looking for as well, because that is where we saw him roll down the window and throw some things out. But at this point, I believe I still see him sitting there in the front. Yeah, I see him sitting there in the front driver's seat, not really moving as much as he was before. But you can see the officer still guns drawn in his direction. Yeah, at this point, considering that the smoke situation has gotten a lot better, they can really slow things down and take their time. And if this will require a SWAT call out, then that will give those specialized officers the time to get here on scene, bring the Bearcats. And of course, we still have the police canine on scene as well, so they've got that option available to them. They've got lethal weapons, they've got less than lethal. So really, the officers have everything they need on their side. And time is one of those things. They have the advantage of just slowing things down, and hopefully this person thinks things through and realizes the best thing he can do. The only thing he can do really is just to surrender. Yeah, let me use my other doubler here, see if I can see a little bit more inside. In terms of the passenger side, I'm going to say no from passenger, but there's the driver. And there you go. There's a less than lethal round. That was some sort of less than lethal round that the officers fired at the vehicle, perhaps a pepper ball round, perhaps a gas round. I'm gonna lean towards a gas round, considering all of the smoke that we saw. And so what that's going to do is that is irritant. Think of something like pepper spray, for example. And so that's going to start to irritate the driver's eyes, his ability to breathe, and eventually it's just going to be so difficult for him to stay under those conditions that he'll have to get out of the car. Copy. So I'm widening out the shot just a bit, you guys, because these situations, of course, can be very unpredictable, so we don't want to show something that we're not ready to show on TV. So I'll keep a slightly wider shot until we can figure out that it's that things are calming down. But for now, you can see the big picture here. Vehicle right there in the middle, surrounded by those police vehicles and officers on either side. Yeah, they definitely fired that gas round that you saw here live on TV. You've got the police canine here as well. There goes another round. You just saw it. I'll push in real quickly just so you can see the smoke. So they got that one in on the passenger side. So they're hitting him from both directions, and it's very difficult to breathe under those conditions. Although sometimes if the person is under the effects of drugs or alcohol, it can give them a little bit more tolerance than somebody who wasn't under the effects of drugs or alcohol. So we'll see how long this person can stand that. We don't know that drugs or alcohol were a factor in any of this at any point. His driving was pretty steady all along. He drove for about an hour before the pit maneuvers did him in here in West Covina.